Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soul Seekers podcast, where we believe that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure, as we share our mission of mentorship is conservation. To learn more about everything we do, check out our show on Carbon TV or go to soulseekersnation.com. Freedom on, everybody, and stay soulful. Do you want to become a better shooter, reduce flinch, protect your ears, and just overall enjoy shooting your gun that much more? Then there's no better way to do that than by adding a suppressor to the end of your barrel. Be sure to check out Huxwrx Safety Co, as they are a leader in the suppressor world with their OSS Flow-Through Technology, virtually eliminating blowback and toxic gas that can affect weapon system performance and shooter health. To find out more about Huxwrx, go to huxwrx.com. That's huxwrx.com, and go get yourself a suppressor for your upcoming hunts. This podcast is also proudly brought to you by OnX Hunt. When I first got into hunting, I kept hearing all about public land and different access and how to find different locations to hunt. I was like, well, how are people even identifying all this stuff? Well, sure enough, I came across the number one hunting GPS app, and that is OnX Hunt. If you guys want to get better at hunting and go deeper into your scouting, OnX Hunt is the number one GPS app for that. Join the millions of hunters who trust OnX Hunt to find more game, discover new access, and hunt smarter. It was a game changer for me, and I know it's going to be a game changer for you if you've never used it. If you have used it, you know the power that it holds. Guys, I really hope you enjoy this episode. If you want to know more about OnX, go to onxmaps.com/hunt. And check out their app. Be blessed, freedom on, and stay soulful. If you're in the market for optics, I want you to go check out blackdiamondoptics.com. Black Diamond Optics offers world-class sporting and tactical optics, including thermals, all at wholesale pricing, direct to consumer. They are going to be partnering up with us for 2023, and I want to start pointing you over towards their direction. Check out Black Diamond Optics. If you've got any questions about it, shoot us a message. Love to hear from you. Be blessed, everybody. All right, guys, if you're looking for a better way to stay hydrated this coming hunting season and on all your adventures in the future, go check out hardsidehydration.com. Their swig rig is awesome, an absolute game changer when it comes to staying hydrated. I get tired of playing around with any water bladders in my bag and having to remove things to get to them and the chance of them puncturing and all that. So what Hardside did, take Nalgene's, got multiple sizes, and you're attaching your hose straight to that. Keep it on the outside of your pack, a lot easier to use. They also have a lot of other cool things. Go check out hardsidehydration.com. Use the code SOULSEEKERS10. That's all one word. Save yourself 10% at checkout. Hope you guys enjoy this podcast. Be blessed. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Soul Seekers podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack, and today I am solo, and we are going to be diving into the world of bear hunting 101 spot and stock style. Being originally from the state of Washington, August bear is the foundation of my hunting career and journey. If you've been following along with the podcast for quite some time, I'm sure you've heard that story, talking about my first bear hunt and all that went down with that. Well, from that point on, I was just absolutely captivated with hunting black bears. I think they're phenomenal. What you get from them, their meat, everything their body provides, they're so special. They challenge your grit, determination, fortitude, and they take you to some of the most amazing and unbelievable places. So without further ado, we're going to dive into what I would normally be giving as a presentation for Bear Hunting 101. If you were able to come this February to the Western Hunt Expo in Salt Lake City, I'll be giving this seminar with some updated information, and there's a lot of graphics and pictures that go along with it. But unfortunately, because this is an audio podcast, you're only going to get the audio version. So we're going to go through Bear Hunting 101 spot and stock style. Bear seasons are kicking off across the West. They're already open up in the state of Washington. Hunting partners Tony and Will, they're out in the wild chasing after them, and we'll see what they end up coming up with when they return from their hunt. But right now, let's get into this. and jump in. By the way, if you have not caught we have 2 bear episodes that launched at episode 1 and 2 of season 3 on Soul Seekers on Carbon TV. Go do so. Go check it out. Let us know what you think. That is carbontv.com. You can watch on carbontv.com, or you can catch all Carbon TV content on the Apple Store, Google Play, Fire TV, Roku, Samsung Smart TV, and a whole lot more. So just download it on your phone, on your Apple TV, whatever it is. Go check out Soul Seekers. Let us know what you think. You can also catch the podcast on there as well. But without further ado, let's get started. So, bear seasons. First off, I'm going to tell you this, and I think I'm changing my mind a little bit as far as calibers. A lot of people are like, oh, well, what caliber do you hunt with? And is it good for this, good for that? I've always been a fan of short actions because I love to shoot my guns. However, it's time, I think, for me to be putting on my big boy pants. And I think I would recommend, if you're going after bear, to use a 30 caliber or at least a long action. Get a lot more power behind it. They are tough animals, absolutely tough animals. And so, if you're thinking about what caliber to use, something to consider. So, what we're going to do right here, we're going to dive into knowledge and preparation. So, I want to tell you that first off, when you're hunting black bears, it's not like deer or elk where you're hunting their bedding locations and their transition areas. You are going to be hunting their food sources. That is going to be one of the biggest, and if not the most paramount thing for you to remember, that you're not hunting where bears are denning up or their transition areas, which we can identify, and we'll talk about that as we go through this podcast. But the food source is going to be the primary thing that you are always going to be focusing on in order to find the bears. So, number one, bears are constantly on the move. Unlike deer and elk that are bedding down during the day and they're kind of stand up and roam around, when you see a bear, it's most likely going to be on its feet and it's not going to be standing still. I like to always say, if you are looking at something, you're like, is that a bear? Is that a bear? If it doesn't move within 10 seconds, it's not a bear. A rule of thumb, now obviously if it is sleeping underneath a tree, that's one thing, but out in the open or behind a bush, they constantly are moving. Number two, they love water and won't stray too far from it. So when you are identifying your bear hunting locations, food sources first, water source is second. They don't stray too far from it, and this will impact specific seasons. We're going to cover spring season and fall season on this, so keep that in mind. They would love water and won't stray too far from it. Number three, dark coats in hot days equal shade and cooler areas unless feeding. So if you are wearing a hot fur coat and it's 90 degrees outside, 80 degrees outside, are you going to be standing in direct sunlight? No, you're going to want to be in shade in cooler areas unless you are out feeding, because the food sources are always going to be out in full sunlight, because that is where the berries are going to be ripening first and all the other food sources that we'll get into. Number four, look for creeks and water sources, as they are going to use them as travel corridors. So I always refer to creeks as like the highways for bears. Doesn't matter how vertical it is. If it is a water source, they love to run right next to it. And you can, what's the word I'm looking for? Ambush. You can ambush bears and do bear hunting based off of water sources, but I'm not that good at sitting and waiting patiently at one small little area. I like to see as much as I can, and I love the spot and stalk style rather than ambush hunting. So that is something that you can do if you do identify bear sign, whether it's the scat or fresh tracks or bear peels where they are peeling the bark off of trees or scratch marks. If you see a high travel area, you can sit in there and ambush a bear. Just be aware of thermals, be aware of wind, and what direction the food sources could be from that location. All right, so next up is going to be glassing knobs and ridges. And what I mean by that is vision is key. In the Bible it says, without vision, the people perish. Well, if you're bear hunting, the more you can see, the more success you're going to have, because bears are always on the move, and food sources, you might only be pinpointing a 50-yard by 50-yard patch of berries, but those bears are going to be coming from all over the place. Just because an entire hillside is a berry field doesn't mean that all those berries are ripe at the same time. So you want to glass and see as much terrain as you can. If you do not have good vision, you are less likely to find them. So just kind of keep that in the back of your head. And then this is one thing I find very, very important to share with everybody. Where you find one bear, there is likely more. I've never, ever gone on a bear hunt, and in my short career, now I know what I'm doing. I wanted to say I'm some expert in the field, yet I have some knowledge, and I believe that mentorship is conservation. So I am sharing this information with you guys to take it and use and run with it, so you can have some success out in the field bear hunting. Where there is one, there's likely more. If you find the food source and the food source is ripe and hot at that time, and hot as in meaning the action's hot, kind of like a fishing hole, right? You have an entire lake, food source could be anywhere within that lake, but these fish are only found in certain locations. Very similar. You'll hear me say a lot of similarities between fishing and black bear hunting in that regard. So where there's one, there's likely more. And then going on with the fish metaphor is that bears are like fish in a pond. So on all fours, they don't stand very tall. And a lot of this brush that are the berry bushes, whether it's alpine huckleberries or kinnikinnick, bearberry, or even acorns for that matter, a lot of this brush is shorter but it still is above the back of the bear. So these bears will use the tunnel system through the brush, and then they'll pop up, and you'll see it pop up above the brush and then go back down, and pop up above the brush and go back down, because they're constantly on the move. Now, this is one of the things that I wish I had the ability to share a photo with you right now, but if you can kind of imagine, you look out at a pond, and you're like, I don't know, is there fish in there? And then all of a sudden a fish jumps, and you're like, there is fish in there, and it goes back under the water. If you cast at that same spot, chances are you're going to be very close to catching a fish, because it's in that location. Same concept applies to bear hunting. So when you see one and you're locating it, if it's staying in that area, because they're always on the move, then they are constantly feeding, and you can focus your attention on that area and see if there is going to be more bears in that area, or if you lose it, you'll see it pop back up. So just like fish in a pond, just because you don't see the fish and it's not visible, it doesn't mean that they're not there. So where the food source is where the bears are going to be. All right, so being prepared for the terrain. So bear terrain is really interesting. It's always some of the steepest, most nastiest country you're ever gonna get in, and it's awesome. So number one, good boots. Okay, so I love crispy Laponias are the boots I wear, and I also wear a custom 3D mapping of Lathrop and Sons Mountain Hunter boot. Love them. They're both phenomenal. The Laponias are a little bit lighter weight versus the Lathrop and Sons. However, those Lathrop and Sons make my feet with my bunions feel so good. So highly recommend taking a look into them and getting your feet mapped. I did a review on my boot experience with Lathrop and Sons on the website, so you can go to soulseekersnation.com. I also did a podcast with them, and we talk all about the need for good boots, especially when it comes to hunting. So let me take a look. If you go to our website and you type in Lathrop, that's Lathrop, in the search bar, it'll pop up the episode. And that was back when the podcast was called The Soulful Hunter. Episode 160, Boots Are the Foundation of Your Hunt, with Stephen and James Lathrop. Go check that out. Totally recommend it. Also, I wrote a gear review on their custom boot systems and 3D mapping. That is also going to pop up when you type in Lathrop. And you're not going to be disappointed. It's phenomenal boots. The only really drawback that I have to say about it is that they are a little heavier. So with that being said, good boots. Number 2, I love to take trekking poles with me. Trekking poles nowadays are being used for a majority in a wide variety of things, from just using them to pack out an animal and help you with your knees going uphill and downhill. There are what's the company? Wiser Precision out of the state of Washington. They make an adapter to allow you to connect your trekking poles to work as a bipod for your gun. So trekking poles come in handy for a lot of things. Obviously, there's some shelters that require trekking poles to hold them up, all sorts of things. So I always carry those on a hunt with me. Second thing is a 9 inch to 13 inch bipod is ideal. I don't have that exact size, so I actually run a 13 to 24, which is a little long, and I don't always run it fully extended. But that is going to allow you to shoot both uphill and downhill at a good angle without getting out of position behind your gun. Majority of the time on our bear hunts, we are shooting uphill and downhill quite a bit. And so being able to get comfortable behind your gun but have enough elevation on your rifle to aim uphill is huge. And that is why I recommend the 9 inch to 13 inch bipod. Also, to be able to tilt it left or right, whether it's called cant, tilt, or swivel, whatever bipod that is. That way you can level out your gun, because the next thing is being comfortable shooting at longer distances to increase your potential success. 500-yard shots are not uncommon when it comes to hunting black bears. Because they are always on the move, it's hard to get very close to them. Unlike mule deer that will bed up and then they're going to just be hanging out there and you can plan your stalk, these bears are always moving. Now, if they're in a centralized location for food source, you can work as close as possible, but a lot of times in the steep terrain that I'm hunting them in, it's not that easy to get super close, because by the time I am within that 150-yard range, seeing over the bushes and the trees that they're in gets to be very difficult. So a lot of times we're taking shots at 300 to 350. On our spring bear hunt in Idaho this year, I took a shot at 450, and that was our best shooting opportunity. What's up, Soul Seekers Nation? Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really appreciate it. As a reward, I have some discount codes for you to use if you are in the market for a brand new hunting pack. Go check out initialascent.com and Initial Ascent packs. They are made in America. Their one-piece carbon frame is an absolute game changer. We run their packs. We love them. And you can save 5% at checkout by using the code SOULSEEKERS. That's all one word. Also, for those of you who are archery hunters and you are tired of shooting at dots on a target, check out deadnutsoutdoors.com for their lifelike 2D archery targets. You can save 20% on all of their products by using the code SOULSEEKERS at checkout. Once again, the code is SOULSEEKERS, all one word. Go check out initialascent.com and Dead Nuts Outdoors. Enjoy the podcast. And you're going to see that episode launch next year on season 4 of Soul Seekers. So I don't want to give away any secrets right now. You want to be staying tuned for that. So being comfortable shooting at longer distances, you got to practice shooting. I sight in my rifles at 100 yards, and I am working my dope charts, and I am making sure that I am consistently accurate so that I am the most ethical and dangerous shooter on the mountain. And I am the apex predator, because that is our goal when we are hunting. Our goal is not to go see animals, observe them, and scare them away with a gunshot. Our goal is to bring home meat. And so we got to do whatever we can to make that the best opportunity as possible. And that means being able to shoot at longer distances. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, I run like a 3x9 or a 3x12 rifle scope. That's fine. Whatever it is going to help you get the job done the most. I love 3 to 15s or 5 to 25 scopes personally. But, you don't have to revamp your whole system. Work with what you got. Last thing is understanding thermals and wind, shooting location versus closing the distance. So in the mountains, wind is not always a steady thing. Hot air rises, cool air sinks. So when that sun is coming out, those thermals are going up to meet that air. And so understanding how to close the distance versus nighttime, they're going to go downhill. So where's that bear in location to where you can get close to it at? And are you going to spook it? Because their noses are phenomenal. I've always heard their eyesight's not that good, but I cannot attest to that in regards to that specific. But I can tell you right now that their noses are incredible and you can spook them out very, very quick. So please make sure to make that you are constant on your wind when you're bear hunting. All right, so we're going to get into scouting and preparation. So this is where I wish I had some OnX like topography shots or hybrid shots to show you. Once again, if you are able to get a hold of us and come to the Western Hunt Expo, we'll be giving a bear hunting 101 seminar. You'll be able to see a lot of the stuff to supplement it. Scouting and preparation. Number one, north-facing slopes versus south-facing slopes. You got to understand that we here in North America live in the northern hemisphere. That means whatever we are telling you right here, whether it's spring to fall, is going to hold true throughout the year. Earlier in the season, focus on the south-facing slopes, then transition to the north. So in springtime, focus on the south-facing slopes for grasses. As the season progresses and the bear rut kicks off towards the end of May, beginning of June, you can look in a little bit different areas and potentially on those north-facing slopes for those green grasses to be sprouting. In the fall time, starting in August, running through September, you're going to be hunting those south-facing slopes for the berries. And then as September moves on towards like the second half of September, you can start hunting those north-facing slopes for the berry fields. And when I say south-facing, I'm talking southwest, southeast, but majority of south direction. Trails in. Okay, so here's something that be aware. I was always a hiker before I was a hunter. So the concept of using trail reports and hiking information to help me identify where I'm going and how to get there is critical for me. And then I partner that with OnX, and OnX has trails built into their software, and you can use that to help identify where you're going. So what I like to do, being from the state of Washington, I use this quite often. However, if you are in a different state, look into what your state offers in regards to this. So in the state of Washington, we have a resource that's called Washington Trails Association. By the way, this is probably one of my biggest secrets to bear hunting that I'm sharing with all of you, so don't go spoiling it for me. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sharing this with you because I want you to use this information to help you be more successful. So this is a huge, huge nugget. So in the state of Washington and other states, there are trail associations and their websites for hiking trail reports. So I'm going to use those trail reports in combination with OnX for information to increase the success of my hunt. Now, on OnX, you can log in and you can use one of their features. I think it's only on their desktop, where it talks about what it looks like when the sun is setting and where the sun hits on the mountain throughout the day. So you get an idea of what it's going to do and what it looks like. And then also, while you are there, go back in time. So once you have found your location you want to hunt on OnX, zoom out or move around. Are there any trails that access it? Is there a trail nearby? What's the name of the trail? Follow it out to its trailhead. Look at the distance of the hike. Look at the mileage. Look at the elevation change. All of that. Then you compare that to the Trails Association's hiker report, and they'll tell you all about it. And what I like to do is I like to go back in time and search the history of dates. So if I am hunting August 10th through the 14th, I'm going to go back in the history of trail reports for that specific trail. Now, even if you're not hunting off of on the trail and you're taking some ridge lines over to go to some random bowl, you can still use these trail reports as a huge win for you. So what I like to do is I like to go back and search the history of dates, and then look for hiker reports that mention berries, bears, or wildlife. I like to work smarter, not harder. And so if you can allow other people to do your scouting for you, you're going to have more success. So on these trail reports, is anyone saying, oh, the berries were in and it was phenomenal and we were picking so many? Okay, well, now I know that on August 10th last year, or August 10th 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, the berries were ripe at this elevation at this time. Oh, my friends and we saw a few covey of grouse. Okay, well, now I know there's grouse in these locations. We saw some deer. Oh, we saw some bear hunters, but they were okay. So going through this process, all of a sudden you're allowing other people to do your scouting. One of the things is you gotta attack it from so many different angles and put as much information to paint this picture as possible. So right here, I'm not going to show it to you because you're hearing this, but I'm going to read a trail report that this came from August 17th, 2021. So here it goes. The mountain was gloriously green, and I have never seen so many grasshoppers hopping around all over the place. It was a cool, misty day, so the views were obscured by clouds, and the moist droplets on the plants made magic photo moments. The marmots were whistling on the way up and down. A covey of 9 grouse were waddling around near the lookout, and we heard a big kitty roar somewhere below when we first reached the top. So right here, I'm reading this trail report. I'm like, okay, well, if I want to go grouse hunting, now I have a location where I know there are grouse at. There's a big kitty roar. Okay, so maybe these hikers don't know what a roar is. It could potentially be another animal. Maybe it is a bear. Maybe it is a cat. If I want to go cat hunting, now I know that's there. So I'm using as much information to paint this picture so I can have a higher success rate in the field. Here's another report I'm going to read for you. Wildflowers are at or near the peak with an explosion of yellow, white, red, and orange in the meadows on the way to the top. I accidentally cropped out the date on this one, so I don't have the date for this trail report. But it says, there are a few huckleberries and mountain blueberries ripe, but the flower show is the main draw. Okay, so right here, there are some berries coming in, but it's not all the way in. That's key to note. So if you're using that as like a timeline of like, okay, maybe I'm a week early, maybe I'm 2 weeks early, and go from there. Let's see here. Where was I? It wasn't too crowded, but there did seem to be some trail neglect with the empty Rainier beer cans and garbage on the trail. I would suspect the trash to be the result of day hikers, as the bear hunters up top were displaying proper leave no trace principles. Aha! So they just got done saying that there's bear hunters in this location. The huckleberries and blueberries were ripe, but not as much as the flowers, and there was bear hunters there. Okay, there you go. Mark that in your memory banks and use that as an opportunity to help you. All right, so when it comes to hunting, I already talked about the knobs and glassing locations. Vision is key for the right spots that receive optimal sun exposure. In the springtime, if you are hunting logging roads and drainages below, you got to understand that why bears target logging roads in springtime, number one, is because there's no trees, and the sun reaches the ground sooner and allows grass to sprout faster. That is why you see bears on logging roads in the springtime. And so the more vision you have, so walking roads is awesome, great exercise, kind of boring. You want to still get in positions where you can see. All right, so if I can get into a location where I can see across several hundred yards to maybe 1,000 yards or more, if there's a timbered drainage across or down the center of it, I know that they use drainages as highways to travel and travel corridors. I'm going to be focusing on both sides of this because they could pop out on either way, whether it's berry fields or green grasses. Is it a south-facing slope, southwest, southeast, and using that as an opportunity for success. All right, so when it comes to digitally scouting, so a lot of times it's like, all right, how do I explain to somebody without a visual of what meadows look like? What do berry fields look like on OnX? When you are using your topographical map, use that for your creek drainages so that you can see where the draws are, where the water sources are. I love to switch into hybrid mode or just pure aerial imagery because it can identify where there are no tall trees. If it looks like it's just a green grassy area, that is going to be your target location. Your food sources are not going to be in tall timber, so keep that in mind. If it's less timbery, then that means there's shorter shrubs that are growing, and more than likely, those are food producing. All right, so when you are glassing, I'm a big fan of buy once, cry once, right? Like, it sucks having to spend so much money on high quality hunting gear. However, it's high quality for a reason, and you're going to get the best results with it. So invest in a good pair of boots, invest in a high quality backpack, and invest in the best glass possible. The better the glass, the better the vision. And like I said earlier in this podcast, it says in the Bible, without vision, the people perish. You got to have vision. So if you have anything that's limiting your ability to see clearly and in high definition, high quality, that's going to limit you. So when you're glassing for bears, number one, look for movement. Bears never are still for long. Keep an eye out for darkness or colors that do not fit in. By the way, not all black bears are black. You got black bears that are black, blonde, brown, cinnamon. So they can be multiple colors. So look for things that do not fit in. Your brain will recognize that as something, and then you're like, oh man, that didn't look like everything else. What is that? And your focus is going to then zoom in on that and use that. Watch it for 10 seconds, 10 to 15, 30 seconds. If it's not moving, then it's not a bear. Move on. So it is key to just keep your eyes on these fields, these food sources. Look for movement. You might not see the whole bear, but you might see a shadow cast, or you might see bushes move. All right, everybody, thank you so much for listening to this episode. As a thank you, I got more discount codes for all of you. If you are in the market for anything in regards to calls, whether it's elk calls, turkey calls, deer, or predator calls, you can save 15% on all Rocky Mountain hunting calls by using the code SOULSEEKERS. That's all one word. And if you're in the market for hard side hydration, a better way to hydrate, go check out hardsidehydration.com. Use the code SOULSEEKERS10 to save 10%. And we also have a discount at Graxaw.com. Graxaw is the leader in ultralight game bags and other backcountry gear. Light, fast, and efficient is their motto. Use the code SOULSEEKERS, all one word, to save 10% at checkout. If you see any sort of movement, keep your eyes on it. And then, like I said earlier, get the best glass possible. I love to glass off of a tripod. If you're hunting without a tripod, highly recommend bringing one, whether you use it for a spotter or binoculars or to film off of or whatever. Tripods are super helpful. I did a podcast with Matty Nelson from Seekins Precision about last year this time, and he said to me, he goes, "What's your objective?" He's former military. He goes, "What's your objective for hunting?" And I was like, "Well, to kill an animal." He's like, "Right. So do you want the best tools for the job, or you just want adequate tools for the job?" And I was like, "Well, I want the best tools." He goes, "That is why I will always bring a tripod that I can shoot off of, one that's large enough to actually attach your gun to." He goes, "Because I am a better shooter off of a tripod than I am a bipod. And the more contacting with the ground that you can have and the more steady of a shot, the better you will be in the field." So something to think about. You don't have to, but I'm a big fan of bringing tripods. All right, so now we're going to dive into springtime bear hunting, April through June. So spring bear hunting, bears are coming out of hibernation. They are slower, more sluggish in the beginning. They get their digestion going, and then it kicks into bear breeding season. So just like September rut for elk and November for mule deer and November, December for white-tailed deer, this is when the rut is for bears, is end of May, beginning of June. So you're going to focus on green grasses, sprouts, new growth, and water sources. Bears need fresh grasses to kickstart their digestion systems after hibernating and to remove, and I'm doing air quotes, their plug. So imagine not going to the bathroom for several months. You're going to be backed up and you're going to be plugged up, and you got to get that plug out so that your digestion system will start working properly. As season continues, they will look for protein sources such as grubs, moth larvae, and then in May, deer and elk fawns start hitting the ground. And so they're going to start scooping up on those any opportunity that they can. They're going to focus on areas that get the most sunlight, i.e. edges of roads, south-facing terrain. And towards the end of May into June, boars will start traveling in search of breeding opportunities. So this is the one time that I will say, if you're not necessarily, if you find a food source and you see a bear, any other time of the year, more than likely those bears will continue to remain in that location. However, during end of May into June, when that breeding season kicks in, bears will just start roaming. Those big boars will be up and over mountains and up and over ridges without hesitation. And the bear that you see one day might not be there the next. However, your opportunity for other bears to come in, if there is a hot sow, there will be bears there. We had an opportunity in June in Idaho where we got on a hot sow, and there was a lot, and I mean a lot of other bears within the exact same drainage, all trying to get on this hot sow. So keep that in mind. All right, so in the springtime, the bear's scat is going to be a light green or dark green or some sort of green. Chartreuse, if you're a fly fisherman, you know what I'm talking about. The green color comes from the grasses and the foliage diet. In the fall, you're going to see a whole lot more seeds in that diet, in that scat, because of the berries that they're going to be munching on. All right, so let me just scroll through this presentation a little bit because some of this you need to be able to see. I will say this: in the springtime is important, but all the time when you're bear hunting, be diligent and aware about what you're shooting at, because a lot of the times these bears, these sows, are gonna have little cubs in tow, and they might not be exactly right next to mama bear when you see it. So give it some time, get comfortable, and watch the bear. Make sure it doesn't have any cubs with it. Springtime, they're going to be way smaller than it is in the fall time. So those bears in the springtime are going to be a lot harder to spot versus in the fall. They're going to be much bigger. But still keep a head on your head on a swivel and look for other little baby bears. Differentiating between a boar and a sow. Boars are typically going to have those bigger front shoulders. Oh my goodness, sorry about that. Bigger front shoulders and more of a blockier head. Sows are going to be what looks like a little larger in the back end, narrower in the shoulders, and a little bit more of a pointier snout. And the other thing is when it comes to hunting, especially with rifles, people are always like, oh man, I blew out this location. I don't think it's any good anymore. If you are on the food source that the bears are after, it doesn't matter if you shot and missed or not, or how much noise you made. As long as you're not blowing them out with your scent, those bears will return. We had a spring bear hunt in 2020 where Tony took 2 shots on a bear, and 40 minutes later, from the same area, I was able to take one of my bears, and that the gunshots, it's not going to scare him off. It's not going to spook him off. You don't want him to smell you, so be aware of that. All right, so when it comes to fall, August through September hunting seasons, you got to find the berries. Find the berries, find the bears. The food sources are critical, like I've said, all throughout. However, depending on what state you are hunting, the berries in the berry fields might look different. So if you are more in like a drier climate, say Idaho, Eastern Washington, Eastern Oregon, Utah, some parts of Montana, you're going to be looking for different types of berries. Those are going to be like choke cherries, kinnikiniks or bearberries, elderberries. Those 3 are going to be more in those drier climates you're going to want to focus on. If you're in the lowlands, the Himalaya blackberries are going to be huge. Now, the problem with blackberry bushes when you're hunting in that is typically you don't have that good of vision. So you're going to be a lot more still hunting or ambush hunting because you've identified the food source, but your vision isn't going to be very good because of the terrain in which you're going to be looking into, unless you can get on a glassing knob or have the ability to look from one side of a bowl and the opposite hillside or whatever. But if you're high in the mountains, which I love, the backcountry bear hunting, you're going to be targeting the huckleberries and the blueberries. So that is going to be key. All right, so fall scat, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, they're going to be filled with berry seeds, and the size of the scat typically determines the size of the bear. You'll always see a lot of people when it comes to bear scat, they'll put their foot by it and be like, oh, well, I wear a size 10 or 12 or whatever, and then you kind of get that a reference for how large of a bear is off of how large of a scat. All right, so end of October, or October through the end of the season. Some bear seasons don't end till November 15th. Some end earlier. Berries are drying up and nearing the end of their food cycle. So while food sources are becoming less abundant, they are causing the bears to move more in search of calories. They got to pack on as many calories as they can, leading into hibernating for the winter. So this is where predator calling will pick up a whole lot more, and bears are looking to pack on as many calories as they can, and that is why they're more often willing to come to a predator call during that time. Because if a bear is eating berries that's high in calories, high in sugar, and it's going to be able to pack on a lot of weight, why would it leave a berry field to go chase down a dying rabbit somewhere? So kind of keep that in mind. If there's thick, heavy, fresh sign, feel free to predator call. However, if there's a heavy food source, use the food source as an opportunity to hunt. And then look for fresh sign, and if in tight quarters for predator calling, like to keep the wind in my wind in my back, which is opposite of like typical predator hunting, because if you're in tight quarters, you want that bear to circle in front of you to try to smell you rather than out of sight and going behind you. All right, so with that being said, once you get your bear down, you have an opportunity to shoot the bear. You've tracked it, you've gotten your hands on it, you got a dead bear. Number one, save your bear fat. You gotta save your bear fat. It is phenomenal. What I recommend doing if on a fall bear specifically, because spring bears typically don't have as much fat on them, if any at all, because they used it up through hibernation through the winter. You're going to cut off some of that bear fat and add it into a jet boil or whatever pot that you use to cook in. And you're going to render down that bear fat on high until it's all liquid and then only the cracklings remain. You're going to remove the cracklings and enjoy that with salt. And then you're going to take some of the bear tenderloin and you're going to put it in that rendered fat and cook them until the meat is completely dark brown. And then remove those tenderloin chunks and add salt and pepper and enjoy. It is going to be one of the best meals that you ever have. The other thing that you can do is once you do that, also bring, sometimes when I'm bear hunting, I always like to bring an onion and cut up an onion and add it into the bear meat. It's absolutely phenomenal. If you're back at home, render your bear fat down in a pot, remove the cracklings, pour the remaining fat through cheesecloth into mason jars, and use the rendered bear fat as a replacement for butter and oil when cooking. So some little info for you. All right, so here's a couple easy bear recipes for you. Number one, my most favorite, if I'm not eating tenderloin on the mountain, my most favorite at-home bear meal is beariyaki. Beariyaki. So it's a word play on teriyaki. So if you've ever had chicken teriyaki or beef teriyaki or pork teriyaki, this is bear meat with teriyaki sauce. So what I like to do is I like to take whether it's backstrap or rear ham or whatever, is thinly slice whatever choice of meat you have and marinate it in teriyaki sauce for a minimum of 24 hours, preferably 3 days for the meat to start to cure in the sauce. Cook the meat to an internal temperature of a minimum 160 degrees Fahrenheit on the grill or the smoker, and serve that over a bed of rice with a side salad or I always have a hard time saying this word, Sichuan green beans, because that is going to be one of your most favorite meals, I guarantee it. By the way, this next one, which is a bear roast, we actually have it as a saved Instagram story on our Soul Seekers Nation Instagram account. So go check that out if you want some actual visual pictures to go along with this. But that is just a typical bear roast. So saving your rear hams, your top rounds, off the back hams and using it as a roast. So first off, you're going to need a cast iron skillet. You're going to heat that cast iron pan up until it's searing hot and season that roast with salt and pepper and pour a half bottle of red wine into the cast iron and sear it on all sides of the roast, okay? So you are going to sear the seasonings in the red wine, all sides of that roast. Then you're going to take that roast once it's seared and add the roast into a crock pot and add the remaining wine from the pan and the rest from the bottle into the crock pot. Add celery, carrots, onions, minced garlic, and choice of seasonings. I like to just use salt and pepper, and then cook on low for 8 hours or high for 4 hours, and you got yourself a bear roast that will just fall apart at the fork. We cooked that up on the 4th of July not too long ago, and it was absolutely phenomenal. I know Jana Waller, which is a huge bear hunter, she loves bear roasts as well. A lot of people, Travis Arnott, shout out to him. He was one of our people that we filmed a turkey episode with. He says bear roasts are the best, especially for holiday occasions. And then those of you who are interested in supporting different organizations, critter clubs that are specifically focused on bear, there is the American Bear Foundation and Bear Trust International. So little information for you guys, a little solo episode. I haven't done one of these in a while, and I thought, it's time to get that information. Remember that mentorship is conservation, and you can never outgive good, as hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure. If you guys are listening to this episode and you're not a bear hunter, it is time to start. It is the best, and if you have already been bear hunting and you have been having a little bit of challenge on finding them, turning them up, hopefully this podcast is helping you out. Share this podcast as much as possible, everybody. Really appreciate it. Leave comments. It helps get the word out. Also, if you guys are interested in picking up any Soul Seekers swag, go to the website, soulseekersnation.com, and check out our shop, what we got. We got some hats, shirts, sweatshirts, stickers, magnets. Go support the mission. Anything that you do there only helps us carry on with what we're doing and spread the word about hunting and how powerful it is in people's lives. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, I'm Johnny Mack. Be blessed. Freedom on. Happy hunting. Stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to support the show, you can always like, share, subscribe, and leave a rating as it helps us share our mission of mentorship is conservation. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of Soul Seekers Nation as we transform lives through primal adventure. If you want to get more connected with the podcast, check out the Soul Seekers Nation Facebook group, as I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. So stay tuned and stay soulful.